Okay, everybody, we are back on the podcast with my good friend Austin Zest. My name is Florian Rölke, and we're going to talk today about local customs, human psychology, and how to deal with people. And how do we deal with our reactions to whatever happens when we deal with people. Austin, how are you today?
Man, I feel great. Thank you for asking. I haven't felt this good for quite a long time, actually, for quite a while. Balanced and just chill. A lot of that is due to sleep. I moved to a new apartment. I was at an old apartment right in front of a soccer stadium, and I always thought it was very quiet up there. But there was motor. Are we plugged in?
No, we're plugged in.
Oh, okay.
I'm just turning it down a bit.
There's there was this traffic just all day long going back and forth, and probably people drinking at night and yelling and stuff. And I realized I wasn't going deep into theta or data or delta, whatever the F that is. You know, the scientific guys know about that, but watch a Joe Rogan episode, they know about it. But I don't. But anyway, the point is I didn't get into good sleep, and it was just affecting me. Every day I'd wake up exhausted, like just more tired than when I had gone to sleep, and I knew that was a problem, you know. And anyway, my wife finally dragged me to a new place. It was smaller, and I thought it was like a step down, you know. We're moving to a little place, but actually it ends up being pretty nice. More up into the jungle, kind of in the mountains, surrounded by nature. All you hear is like chickens and stuff and dogs, but like I'm already getting used to that because it's natural, you know. It's organic intelligence, not artificial intelligence. Organic intelligence, and yeah, man, I'm sleeping great, and yeah, it really is making a big difference in my mood and stuff. I can feel it already. But as far as like not reacting emotionally, man, that's something that you're not taught at all. I mean, parents don't really teach it because I think, and you can't blame parents, but it's like there's been a generation. Our generation now, we're in our 30s, right? So we've been in the information age where you can, any problem that comes, I don't know about you, Florian, but like, you know, when I had issues, you know, relationship issues or whatever, so I would go on Google and I would look it up because like who else is there to really, there's, you know, you can get advice and stuff from people, but like, anyway, that really, we're in that information age, you can just check it out, boom. How do you respond in this situation? So and so, and yeah, like that's kind of what I'm realizing. The reacting emotionally to other people's issues or their insecurities or just their, you know, response, right? Maybe their response is rude. You take it as very rude or tough, and you take it personally. Well, what does that do to you? It makes your ego, and it makes you feel all like, hey, you take it personally, right? And then it affects you emotionally. And then you're sitting there thinking about it, and then you yourself get all riled up emotionally and then snappy and stuff. Well, who just really did the most damage? You know what I mean? It's like, what good was that when I could have just taken a breath and look at that, oh, I have a choice here. I don't have to react emotionally to this other person's behavior. You know, and then also if you're real, I got to look at myself. I'm that way too sometimes. Sometimes I react badly. And I am short with people, and I'm quick, and I'm probably rude and disrespectful, and I don't even know it. So that's where we got to take it in. Like, hey, where's my part in this too? And when have I been that way? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't look at. We want to think that we're all perfect. We all think that we're freaking, you know, angels all the time and shit. At least I do sometimes. I think, oh, you know, everything I do is right, you know. And I think a lot of humans feel that way. But it's like when we start to realize, hey, we're not, you know, we're just humans, and man, it makes life so much easier. And these last few weeks beforehand, life was really tough for me. I was having a really tough time. I was working. It was just like I was low energy. I was just like snappy and everything. And I was started to listen to these people talking about you know, their emotional intelligence and what gets passed as a child and traumas and all these things and what you can do about it and your part in it. And it's not, and then you're not a victim, you know, even if everybody else is like looking at you, judging you and stuff. how do you want to live your life? And I think we've had this conversation multiple times, but each time we have it, it's like it gets more clear. I don't want to live in a way that's for other people. Like, I want to live for other people, but I don't want to live in a way that I'm like in debt to the world, that I'm always trying to compensate or something, or that like I'm seeking validation. That's the one. I'm like, oh, I need to be validated by the people in this community, or you know what I mean? Like, I just want to be myself and be happy, healthy, strong, and just like not have to pretend. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so, what was it that you've learned in being less emotionally reactive? Because I believe a lot of people can really relate to that. You're really talking about the real life situations of what can happen to us and like what usually happens. And as much as we're talking about higher level concepts, and as much as people hear that in other podcasts, what have you found so far in that? I'm just going to close the window.
Oh yeah. What have I heard as far as what? I'm sorry, like what was the question?
As far as being less reactive, so you said you were listening to marriage podcast, and so how do you do that practically? Like how did you do that practically?
Well, okay, so everybody's different emotionally, right? Some people get triggered quickly. Some people, I realized I was getting kind of trying to correct, because you teach people the way. But if somebody else has a lot of trauma and that they're dealing with, you can't really take it personally necessarily, because it's not necessarily you. It's not, and it's like the more that you try to correct that and put it, but sometimes that makes things worse. So it's like, is what I'm doing by defending myself or or standing up or getting angry at people, in the street, let's say somebody's just being disrespectful or whatever, and by me confronting the situation, always trying to be a fighter. Is that actually helping the situation, or is it making it worse? So that's what I had to really look at. Like, when I can just kind of, doesn't mean you're weak. It takes more strength to feel that emotion. What's that?
To not react.
To not react, exactly. That takes, and I didn't realize it because growing up I worked with a lot of construction bosses and stuff, and these guys were freaking explosive. And whenever I was a younger guy and I saw them, I'm like, oh my God, that's a strong, powerful dude. I want to be, oh my gosh, how is he able to freak out like that and throw things? But actually, these guys were incredibly emotionally immature.
Probably a lot of relationship issues. Issues with business partners and all that come from that you don't immediately see.
Exactly.
Now that we understand like the larger concept, we can see that this probably has ripple effects in other areas, but back then you probably didn't even see that, right? You didn't even consider that.
No, you don't. Yeah, and I've heard like Jocko Willink podcast talk about him in the military, and so he would see same thing, and then you realize that is emotionally immature, because it actually takes more strength to. It's almost like you get thrown this super uncomfortable, crazy like firecracker in your hand, and it's like such an uncomfortable thing, and it's like the first thing you want to do is throw it. But if you can actually close it and then that's just what this is, and like close it, and it's like that's the test. And you can do that multiple times, and then one time you might not do it and it kind of sets you back again. But the more, I think it's like a muscle, the more you keep building that, the more that you'll get better at it. And I think the more happy you'll be in yourself. And then those things just kind of die down a bit, because you're really, that's what I think a man needs to be in a relationship. It's like you got to be able to because that emotional issue is like why the whole world's a mess. We're all emotionally out of control. It doesn't help with technology and stuff, and doesn't help because we're in super individualistic society. Even in Peru, where it's like all family oriented, well, they have their family groups, but that's kind of like a unit. That's almost like an individualistic unit where you're allowed to be emotionally crazy and stuff within that family unit, but outside of it, it's just that's what I think we're in. Like we need to learn emotional control. And I think technology amplifies it a little bit too. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it does. And one interesting thing that just came to mind when you were talking is that we usually tend to see ourselves in the other person, right? So there's this great saying that we don't see the world in the world, we see ourselves in the world. Meaning we only perceive the things that we usually habitually pay attention to. And so if there's somebody that triggers us in a certain kind of way, and we feel a reaction towards that, is usually that we feel this reaction towards this very part within ourselves in some kind of way. That's why oftentimes, it's known in education that, or like at least in alternative education, that the people who deal with low confidence tend to like to talk about confidence. That the people who are very dependent usually like to talk a lot about independence, because it's like a lot of it's a concept of them. It's kind of the overcompensation of the thing that we feel inside we are lacking, and that's why this is so compelling to us to concern ourselves with that, to talk about that.
Right.
The people who are all about like self-discipline are usually the people who have this concept that they have overcome their own being undisciplined. Right? And so when we have a confrontation with somebody, it usually like is the very partner ourselves that we don't want to see. It's like I shared this before, I think, you on the podcast. It's like when I first got here, there are some beggars in the street, like there are in all other kinds of places, Germany as well.
In Peru?
So, in Peru, yeah. But less so. It's not that much actually. It's the poverty shows in other ways.
Yeah.
But I always had these very strong reactions towards it, like very this kind of harsh, judgmental attitude. Also in my head, where I was just catching myself and my self-taught of like, whatever I was saying to myself and to them, right? And I realized that I was judging the very same part within myself, because I was at this time also not providing and not making any money and just basically living off of other people, right? Very interesting. We got to see that. And so in the same way as when somebody disrespects us, what is it that we're actually disrespecting ourselves, right? When somebody is not really meeting our needs, where are we not meeting our own needs? Where are we not showing up in the way that we actually would love to show up for ourselves? Right? And then the externalization is so easy, because we can only take so much of that until this externalization happens, and until we're like really becoming conscious of that, that's the practice. That really is the practice.
Right, for sure,
and so,
man, for sure.
And so there was one other point that I wanted to touch upon. What was that? So we see that in each other, and the point escaped me, but
all good.
I think it's interesting to reflect upon that when we deal with each other, and that's also where the education comes in. Because once you've heard these types of dynamics of how the human psychology functions, you cannot unlearn that. You're kind of aware of that, and you have an unconscious understanding of that, even if it might not be consciously present. But you've understood this kind of dynamic of like, that's how it works, and that's some kind of education that I feel is missing oftentimes. And it can lead to much more empathy when we can actually see that what we don't like in each other are actually the parts that we don't like in ourselves. And so in order to address that, we want to be addressing them in ourselves and see what are actually the actions that we're not taking, that we would love other people to perform, right? So how are we being judgmental to ourselves? That was the point, right? Somebody that is usually very judgmental to other people, you know that they are judgmental to themselves. They must be. They must be. And so if we can come there with empathy and treat people kindly in that way, because the way that you show up in the world is what you unconsciously and habitually always practice in your head, of how you talk to yourself and how you talk also in your head about other people. And so if somebody is very judgmental or very critical, and you hear that in somebody's voice, this like kind of a bit snide, a bit of passive aggressive. We've talked about all of these things and how we can mitigate all of that. They are that judgmental towards themselves and even harsher. So that's why it's important that we start to practice good self-talk and good habitual thinking inside of ourselves. When something negative happens, like, what's good about it? Not to be just overly positive, but it's like to have this emotional control, as you said, to like, okay, this is what happened, it's bad in this way, but also, what are we going to do now? This kind of quick switching to it and catching yourself when you want to react to other people. So,
Yeah, man, there's a lot of information in there. It's like a lot to unpack. The other thing that was coming to mind too is like, this is something, growing up, when you've had kind of some instability growing up, right, and traumas and stuff, you tend to, as you kind of leave the house and you're sort of more independent, it's hard to put boundaries with people, right? So you end up being either too nice, too giving, or you kind of you end up going through these extremes, and or like a problem I had was I wasn't able to really like defend myself kind of with words. I didn't want to rock the boat too much, I did in some circumstances, and then it just would go way too far. It was like a build up, and then it would just be an outburst, and it would just like not be. It would be like a way like, oh, okay, and then all of a sudden it would just be just not cool, because it was like, why didn't I just put those borders, or those boundaries up from the very beginning. It's kind of that same thing we deal with here in Peru. Like people were really not taught that, but and neither was I. It's something I had to learn myself pretty much. But that was something I wanted to say about, like, the more you get that strength to kind of, okay, now I'm going to stand up for myself. Now I'm going to stand up for the people I love. Now I'm going to, you can kind of go, as a man at least, probably as a woman too, you can go too far in that direction as well. And then it's like, oh, now I got the confidence and will to, now I don't care about it. Now I'm just going to be, and then you kind of become like a dictator. And then you start to push other people away because, like, okay, now I'm never going to get, nobody's going to, cross that boundary ever again, right? I'm not going to be taken advantage of like that. No. But then it gets too much, too far. And that's another emotional imbalance too. It's like, it's good to be able to learn that and stand up for yourself. But you got to learn that too, and you can't just be constantly, because then nobody's just going to want to deal with you. You're just going to be, and then if you have kids and family, you'll just be this kind of dictator type of thing, and you're just like, nobody's going to want to deal with you, and, in our friendship, I'm sure I've had that role at some point, hopefully, but the point is to get aware of that and be like, okay, and not be, and realize like those are things that are, you gotta look at it. You gotta look within yourself, and you gotta have the guts to look at the good and the bad and the ugly within yourself. So you're not hurting other people, and you're not hurting yourself. It's a complicated mess of a craziness, But the more you start to get that, it's like, okay, then you start to this type of thing. The reason it just should be taught. It should be just like such common knowledge. Family should be teaching this, so that way you're not catching up in your 30s and your 20s and like this is just you should be leaving the house, or going into college just with this knowledge completely intact. You know how to put boundaries. You know how to communicate with others. You know how to, obviously some stuff you just have to learn out in the world. But man, it's like, these types of things you shouldn't be struggling with well into your 40s and 50s, and some people never ever, they're 60 years old and they're in the emotional department of like a, very young person, right? And that's not cool. That's not cool either. So I don't want to be that. That's why I'm like really trying to take this serious and just, and it's better for myself to not, oh man, what a gift. I don't have to emotionally respond to everybody else? Like, gosh, how exhausting is that? And really, why is that? To defend my ego? To defend, I can't be disrespected, or no, I can't. It's like, am I that insecure? Am I that much of a wimp? That I can't handle a little but it's like, yes, that emotional craziness is more difficult than physical pain. It's like that emotional turmoil that start for me. It's like in here. It's like. But then once that passes, it's like a big scary monster, but it like once you stand up to it, it goes away. And then the more it goes, it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Just that initial, I don't know what that is. It's like a combination of survival. It's like something so instinctive. It's like it goes 200 years ago, fighting in the bow and arrow, whatever times, or, there's something so instinctive there, that emotional response, and because it gets fear, terror, and just all this stuff mixed in there. And it's like, oh my God, I got to run away from that. I got to defend myself. So I'm going to act, I'm going to yell, I'm going to act crazy. It's like to ward that off. But maybe in that situation, it's like super not necessary, especially when there's people you love, and it's like, from a place of compassion, and understanding and meeting people where they're at. Not everybody has been able to do all this kind of spiritual work that, you know, we have, right? Not everybody's been able to do multiple ayahuasca ceremonies and all this crazy, you know, amazing stuff. And even still, it's hard to get. I've done all this work, and it's still, I'm just now starting to get it. It's like, oh, it just shows how difficult it actually is. You know, so that's the thing I want to start working on more in that direction, because like even more than all the addiction stuff and helping people quit porn and drugs and all this stuff, it's like it's all more and more leading to that emotional response to things, you know. And it's like that's more than, that's what I'm starting to see. It's like all of that stuff, it can be treated individually, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not all that genetics, but I do feel like the emotional response is just like the biggest thing that people are struggling with right now. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think technology is making it worse or better or both? Because it's almost like a double-edged sword. Because it's like we can now look on YouTube and find incredible information and techniques on how to heal that. But on the flip side, you're looking at YouTube Shorts and you're looking at stupid stuff, or people watching pornography all day. Then it messes it up even more. So, right? Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy, and it's like with bigger power comes bigger responsibility. It really is like that. With this tool, as you said, we can educate ourselves, we can communicate with other people, we can reach out to friends probably faster than we ever have.
Yeah.
If we have friends, and if we build the network of friends that we got, so it can be an incredible tool for emotional regulation, but it comes with the knowledge of what we need to do to emotionally regulate. Right. And so part of what came to mind as you were saying that is, part of what makes it easier to not react in that moment is by actually having the practice of addressing things quickly. I'm sure that you've heard this as well, like in the marriage podcast, there's this very famous kind of aphorism of like, never go to sleep angry, or never go to sleep with an unresolved fight kind of things. When there's something standing in the way before you go to bed, don't go to bed kind of angry. So like just at least say it's like, okay, we haven't fully but let's keep this in peace. Tomorrow let's talk about that. And as I was talking with a good friend of mine as well, who he had a child with a woman that he's now split up with, and so he finds himself in a position where he oftentimes would love to reach out again, because there's still the idea of like, well, maybe we can make this work, because I'm changing, and there are new kind of pieces, information of hope, and but he finds himself reacting as well in that situation, and
emotionally,
and part of that is also that we've trained ourselves so much to always give in, to always react in these situations. And so what we've been starting to do in that is actually meeting the needs in some other ways, because part of where this reaction is coming from is that she's oftentimes in that situation for him the only source of love, affection, female energy. And so we've been working on actually establishing more of a friendship with other people, and then also a strong network of other female friends. It's like that is helpful too, and that gives another outlet of this energy without needing this one person. Then when the habitual reaction comes, we usually then react in the same kind of way, and that's been helping him. And it's also been helping him in the way that as he became more independent, she made steps towards him, because she's the mother of his child. She basically has the say when he gets to see his son, like it usually is at this age. And so if there's some kind of emotional issues that are unresolved, even if we are most loving and conscious people, it's like there's an element of us of wanting to stick it to the other person if there's an unresolved issue, through utilizing the child as the means of leverage, so to speak. And even if we don't want to do this, like every one of us at some point has these thoughts of like, okay, how do we stick it to somebody else? And so part of that is really learning how to not react in these situations. How do we do that? In my opinion, through just getting our energies in balance in other kind of ways. Because if she is the only source of female energy from him, and it has been leading to arguments over and over and over again in his situation, the real solution is becoming more independent, going back to his sports classes, which he likes, talking to other people, being in leadership positions in his life, which he already does in other kind of ways, having more female friends, having generally a circle of friends, and like also being okay with that these triggering situations will come up,
Right.
and then not reacting towards it. Now, I obviously am saying that from a very kind of outside position,
Right.
since I'm not in a long-term relationship currently. So it's always easy to say that from somebody else, but it's
sure.
also easy to observe the progress and the difference from this outside perspective, and it really seems to have helped him in that situation. Then the interesting thing happens, because oftentimes her reaction towards that is basically also a cry for help. I've had also that conversation with a lot of other people currently, that oftentimes negativity is just basically a cry for help. People don't really know how to articulate that they want help or need help, especially when they don't want to admit that to themselves, that they're actually in a position where they would like to have help.
Yeah.
Oftentimes this criticism is basically just a cry for help of like, man, are you going to change? Are you going to be more independent? It's like, why do you always come to me? It's like, can you please step up and just handle your things?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not great, especially when we need this person as kind of the only source of kind of love and comfort and all of that. But that creates the cycle. It's like when he comes to her seeking for these things, and she's not wanting to give it to him in order to kind of teach him this lesson, but in a way that he doesn't quite get it yet. Right? Where she's basically just also crying for help. I was like, when I am the one that needs to provide you as well with the love and support and the child, and it's like, what are we doing here, right?
That's right.
It could be part of that as well. And so basically what I'm getting to is two lessons that I've taken from that is like, generally bringing our lives into balance so that we don't have this kind of emotional build-up that makes us react in these situations. And then learning each day and kind of deconditioning ourselves, exactly what you said of like not reacting in these situations, because the more we react, it's like you know that, I know that, whenever it was like tobacco addiction or marijuana or whatever kind of things, like the more you do it, the easier it goes. Like the more the pathway in the brain gets like trampled in.
Right.
And so like the more we react to a person in a similar kind of way, you know, the more I, whatever that is, sleep in, the more I give in to pornography, the more I gamble, the more I play video games, the more I, whatever it might be, right? The easier this path gets trampled, right? The more I just go late at night doing things where I could just sleep, just staying up late, watching movies, whatever it might be for people. People have all kinds of ways where these pathways and habits get trampled in. And part of the solution that I've really found is not like trying to like make it go away, but like finding out what does it give us.
Right.
And then meeting these needs in some other kind of way.
Right, exactly. I love that.
What do you think? I'm just
I love
quickly
that,
going to turn off the stove, but keep going then.
Totally. No, that makes sense. And also, like, in his defense a little bit, too, like, men have been taught, that it's okay to be kind of emotionally like a woman is emotionally, and we've pretty much been taught that. At least I've seen that in like in movies and in TV shows, and it's kind of been this lie, even though, like our grandparents and stuff, we saw that they my grandpa's just silent. His only emotion was like pissed off. It's like, and just kind of like, but there was a reason for that. When you had a big family and stuff, and you had a lot of women in the family, and like you had to be the strong one. You had to. It's like they were kind of forced in those positions, and I kind of see that now too. We live in a Peruvian outskirts, which is still in a lot of ways like the 1950s. So it's like I've kind of had to realize that, like, oh, this sort of lie. I don't know if it's a lie or not. That hey, men should be emotionally, and I've had to really kind of not do that. And I realize that there's a reason for that too, that it's like, okay, if men are, that just causes confusion in a relationship too, and if women are like, oh, I gotta be the strong one, emotionally and all this, it's just they're gonna resent and find disgust for the man, so like hey, that's just that's instinct. That's not something you got to change overnight. We're not going to, in one generation, make men and women equal emotionally, and like it's going to be freaking perfect. And men are going to be able to express themselves emotionally, and women are going to not look at them as some weak, pathetic. They are instinctively they are. They can't help it. So as men, it's like we need to find other outlets to have that, so that way you can be the rock. So because women by nature are emotional, more emotional. It's not like they're more emotional than men. It could be more. Men could be more in some circumstances, whatever. But the point is, like, there's just like natural law in life, that men and women, there's like a law that's there, that is unspoken, that just seems to be there. In each generation we've seen so much change in the last 100 years. A generation of men who went to war, and grandparents and stuff, and who had big families and who just went to work and it didn't cry when they were in pain or whatever, right? Maybe that's a stereotype, I don't know, but it seems more that way. They just work, they kind of like, but now we're seeing this kind of craziness where like men are just like giving all their power away to the women, and that's not fair to the women, and it's like, find another outlet for that emotional, situation there. Don't put it all on your partner. And same with women. Women a lot of times the man is now the husband, the boyfriend, but freaking almost the girlfriend at some point, like I don't mean like, in a weird way or anything, but like, just like, is there the emotional support for all these things? Esther Perel talks about that, the relationship coach, and it's like, yeah, she's great. She gets it. She's like, yeah, now we have a generation where it's like, the couple is everything. It's like everything is the whole community where, in Peru, it's like when my relationship's better, it's like when we're, when my wife's like communicating with her family and stuff, for better, for worse, you got to put in boundaries and stuff with your family. But it's like, that's the way it's supposed to be. In Western society now, Germany, United States, it's like so individualistic. You don't have hardly any social circles. So it's like everything's dependent on the other, and that's so much pressure for one person, it's just insane. So that's something we really need to work through, and that's part of like school communities and communities now. Online communities are so really great now because you can find communities where you get that outlet. Yeah. You find a way to heal that. So that's like a huge opportunity with the internet now, which I think is such a blessing, and we really need to utilize that. And that's something, we're trying to create right over time. My product eventually, that I don't know, something along those lines, emotional, and because that seems to be more and more what's coming up, like just that emotional situation, getting into emotional control, so you're not utilizing something outside of you, whatever it is, drugs, sex, blah, 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 drinking. Those are just symptoms of it. Doesn't even really matter what it is. You can be taking drugs that you don't even like, that make you feel like shit, but you're doing it just to have a change of emotional mood. That's it, just to change. That's all. And, so that's what I feel like, more and more communities, tribes that are based in it. That's why it's so interesting living in a pretty much quasi-Indian reservation in South America. We pretty much live in that. I mean, really. My wife's explained that. She's native. She knows. She's like, we live in like reservations in Peru. It's like one big reservation with different tribes. Cities are like tribes. And that is the thing, I keep saying this, whenever I go back to the United States, that's what I miss about Peru, is being able to go into the store, and talk to people and have that social communication. It's like we need that. In the United States, you go to the store, you might not, you can choose to never speak to anybody for a week and still get all your, buy everything. Everything's automated now, electronic, robot. It's more and more in that direction. But people are suffering, but they have everything. They have beautiful houses, they have cars, they have nice roads, and everything's smooth and clean, Not everywhere, but in a majority of the United States. But what is that if you don't have any social contact? Okay. So here, the issue is they don't have nice roads, they don't have order, they have tons of corruption. Everything's kind of chaotic and messy. But they have that. They have culture. They don't have a lot of homeless people, like you were saying at the beginning of the show. They don't have a lot of people sitting in the streets suffering with depression. Yes, there's issues, for sure, psychological issues, etc. But it's not to the same degree as, in the United States, not even close. So some sort of mix between the two is really what I see we need. Some sort of way to bring more social and cultural to places like in the first world, in the country, Europe and the United States. And then here we need a bit more order. So there's got to be a way to bring the two together, but that's a whole nother deep talk. I don't even know how we would even do that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the good starting point is by having these conversations. And then
Yeah.
at some point, people will chime in who have something to say, even here locally, and then we'll see what we can do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I'd love to touch upon that one point that you make with was it the reaction? One second. So yeah. Anyways, so let's talk about then how
Dude, we're just having a conversation.
how we can combine the two.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there was one point that I was
Like
gonna make because of that.
reacting to external or reacting to other people's.
Yeah.
Just
Nah,
chime in when I'm talking.
I-
We can just have a conversation. Yeah, just
Yeah.
chime. Let's do that more. We don't have
Definitely.
To,
No, it's all good. It will come back. Yeah, no, I think for the combination of the two, I think results, results,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like people listen to other people who do well in life. And so, like, yeah, part of that is also like earning our right to actually speak.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm seeing that more and more, that I myself am getting in a position where people more kind of listen and want to be
Right.
around when I'm like, in the martial arts
Right,
community
right,
here. It's
right,
like there are
right.
lots of people who are half my age that we're kind
Yeah.
of training with. And so naturally you look up to somebody who's twice your age, if the person is
Right.
kind of okay.
Right.
Right.
For sure.
And so, yeah, part of that is just really earning that. And then the next part of that is actually getting the financial stability and the communication with influential people, what I'm definitely actively working on every day. And so, yeah, part of that is really that. How do we bring order and all of that here? I'm just
What are you doing?
writing.
What are you doing right now? Like what? How are you making money here in Peru? What are you doing? What is flying to? How are you even able to survive here? Like what's your work now? Because this is a perfect time. Like what? And you're bringing order into chaos, pretty much. People who are working on projects and stuff, and they have all this and like it's
Right.
pretty amazing what you're doing. You've created something in the last year, pretty much out of nothing. Like a year ago, Florian just learned about AI. A year and a half ago, I remember I came up here and you were like, I just discovered something. It was AI. I thought it was dangerous. I didn't want to touch it, but it's like anything. It's like your phone. You can use it to order hits. You can use your phone to order hits or do horrible stuff, or you can use it to use a spiritual uplifting meditation. It's like it's all that, right? It's the same thing. It's just like everything. It depends on how the individual uses it. So if you're using it for world domination and you're using it now, I'm seeing AI being like naming itself and people are using it as like a friend and it's like too much. Like, well, then that's don't that's your problem. That's your fault if you're putting that much attention into it. I haven't used it for a few weeks, like just barely, and I just look at it as a tool. It's totally a tool, and it's a great tool, but it's a reflection of myself. Everything I put into it is like it's a reflection, and it takes information from the bigger computer, the bigger web, and it helps me with my vision, what I'm doing. But I'm not gonna put so much into it where it's like everything is depending. I'm getting back down to organic intelligence, because that part that's already built into each individual human is not something that can be lost too. Because if you do too much into it, then you forget how to write songs. Oh, just write me a song. Oh, then you start feeling less of your humanity. So it's like, I think it's important for people to still keep their humanity and find an outlet. Exactly. Doesn't mean don't ever use it, go from one extreme to the other. Just use it, but also remember, hey, your artwork and you're a part of yourself that's human too, and be able to sit down and write a book without it. Like, I think that's important as well, to keep that part to it. But anyway, what do you do, man?
Yeah, definitely. And so part of that is also, for me personally, my humanity. I still do all of my communication myself, texting people, calling people, all of that, getting on calls with people personally. It's still me. It's not the avatar. It's not the voice calling bot, right? And I will keep that. And that's how I'm exercising like my own intelligence still in all of that. Yeah, we want to be mindful that we don't, in the same way as we watch movies and get artificially stimulated by that, kind of a lot of people live out their desires by proxy through the movies that they see. Right. And so the same way we can leverage a lot of our human calculation and intelligence that we would usually need to artificial intelligence. We want to make sure that we really narrow down, okay, what are the areas of focus that we use our human intelligence in, and then utilize artificial intelligence to enhance that and for all of the other things, right? Because if it's about, as we said, like summarize the meeting notes, we can do that. We don't need to remember all of that and take a lot of notes. That's one of the use cases that I use. No, what I do is, we're bringing people together. We're currently working on so there's a community that I'm a part of for more than a year now, and it's really crystallizing who actually has. So we figured out what are the use cases for AI that are ethical and that are really helping businesses. And I'm basically making introductions. And so we're also looking how to work together to get like larger contracts. Like if you sell to smaller businesses, you get a smaller contract. If you sell to larger corporations, they pay $150,000 for like an implementation of the contract all the time. Sometimes they pay this just for like a corporate wellness event, annual gathering, just on stationery, they pay $15,000, right? Just for the toilet paper and the liquid soap for all of their locations. Right. So they have the money to spend. And so we're working on, okay, how can we leverage our contacts and how can we kind of team up the agencies that are currently actually not doing more than 20,000 per month, which sounds kind of a lot for us who are trying to get to this level, but for larger corporations, they doubt whether these types of agencies could actually even deliver the project. But if we actually team up, and then leverage our existing contacts, our existing network to get around these larger corporations with the use cases that we have demonstrated and applied in small and medium-sized businesses, and I've gotten the results, I've gotten the data that we can then show as a report to larger corporations. That's what we're currently working on.
Wow.
And so, just like 2 days ago, I had a conversation with a very bright young gentleman in Michigan, and he is helping companies like roofing, landscaping, construction, basically automate the following job. So when they are being set out, and I'm sure you know that from experience, when you work for a construction company and they have multiple construction sites, or let's say like a larger landscaping company who are already doing like a few million per year, who have like several trucks, they've been established for 15 years, and they have different sites that they work on as the company grows and matures. They found that usually the manager sits there and does it on paper like they would have done in the 70s and 80s and in the 90s and like write out, okay, Jack and Jeff and Wes and Katie are going to go to this side, and we're gonna take these shovels and these rakes, and we're gonna take these kind of trees and this equipment, this inventory to go to that landscaping site to build the backyard for that project. Okay, and then Martin and Jeff and like this and that, they go this place. And they would spend 2 hours, the manager, every day.
Managing.
While the staff was waiting for an hour for them to finish their handwritten calculation. All of them can be digitalized and can be automated. And so this is one of the use cases. I've talked before about like appointment setting chatbots for Vietnamese owned nail salons. Like nobody is being let go of, nobody loses their job. It's a much better experience for the customer. And the same way, this kind of inventory routing automation, payroll as well. He does payroll as well for these people. So it's like the manager doesn't need to sit down and calculate that. The manager can then focus on actually building a good connection with the team instead of having all of his mental energy being absorbed by like putting it out on paper. Basically a very inferior way to do the business. He could just have it all in digital and says like, okay, Martin, Jeff, they go there, and the automation calculates it all and he just checks it. Right? This is one of the use cases where nobody's being let go of, but it's like the staff doesn't need to wait for an hour every day. This manpower doesn't get wasted, so they can instead take on one more project. The manager doesn't need to spend these hours, so the manager can focus on much more high leverage tasks. This is what we're doing currently. This is what we're figuring out. And there are not that many use cases that we've actually seen working because the technology is still maturing, but there are a few things that we found that are really useful. And what I'm doing is basically just through the network that I've built over the last year, really actively making connections with people, just making introductions and getting like commissions based on that. That's still very early, but I've had a few good wins in the last weeks.
Your coaching though, what do you do? Because that's even more. Let's see the shiny object syndrome and helping people find clarity. I think is so interesting.
The coaching is part of that, sure. So first of all, I help people nail down their offer and their positioning. Right, the person that I was just talking to with the routing, the inventory, and staff routing automation, he had various other things as well. But we really figured out that this automation is for like a landscaping company of like 10 million a year that he's working with, which sounds like a lot, but like if you're into landscaping and you have like $150,000 for like building a backyard for some for like a wealthy homeowner, it's not that much, especially when you're like in this area of Michigan where it tends to be like more upscale.
Employees too, you're paying out
You
employees.
have employees, you have trucks, you have inventory, so
insurance.
like yeah. So just
everything.
because they're making like, I don't know, 10 million per year,
Right.
that's like 1.2 per month, but it's like
Doesn't mean he's taking
how
all
much-
that home
exactly.
right into the bank.
Exactly.
You're not. That's
exactly.
The thing, yeah.
That's exactly the point that I'm
Yeah,
making. And like
yeah.
this automation is saving them actually $60,000 per year.
That's incredible.
In terms
Yeah.
of manpower, like hours of the manager and the staff, as I just said, if you
Wow.
sum this up, it's that amount of money.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And so we're like, okay, nobody's being let go of.
No.
There's no, like, we don't put up any kind of artificial content on social media, anything that's not like a great experience. It makes it a better experience for the company. And so I help basically people nail down on that. It's part clarity, okay, what do I actually want to do? Which kind of industry do I want to serve? But when it's that clear, like for this person where he has worked in these companies, his father used to own such a company, so
Right.
he, when he grew up, was working in landscaping and all these things. He has like industry knowledge that other people don't have. That's the only reason why he was able to build this type of automation. Because he has this kind of insight of how the business works in the same way as you would know for construction is like what's the inside of the business.
Yeah.
And only then really the value unlocks by finding systems that can actually help there. And when you then have the technical knowledge like he does, right? And so we've helped clarify the offer and then outreach, right? It's like, what do we do? So I'm getting more and more away from the mindset, away from that, more into like real tactical, practical business coaching, which I enjoy tremendously. And honestly, I've realized like over the last weeks that kind of networking component to that, making introductions to people, I enjoy that even more than coaching actually. But they both go together, because every call that I have with people, it always is part coaching. Coaching is basically just learning how to lead a conversation
Right.
and help the person get to their own conclusions. That's basically what it is,
Right.
right? It's like leading the person to what's best for them through a conversation where they are being led towards what would be the right decision in this moment, right? It's decision making, it's action taking, right? That's what it is. And so, yeah, making introductions. And I've been loving that kind of my whole life. I've just been forgetting that for like a few years, that's really kind of my essence. And so, yeah, we're looking into that. A lot of wins has happened over the last weeks. You know, it was kind of a medical spa owner that's like, you know, laser hair removal and these types of services. I referred him to one of my clients, and now they're about to close like a $6,000 per month contract for like local SEO, meaning he writes like articles about the services that they offer so that they show up on the first page of Google.
Right,
It's like one of those agency services that these service providers usually always have. And he had an agency. He said like he was just tired of the guy because he wasn't responding and it wasn't a good service.
Yeah.
And then I came in the door and asked him whether he would want to talk to my client, and he did. And now it's just Independence Day holiday here, but he's probably about to close this deal.
That's huge, man.
Meaning
That's
then
huge.
probably a bit of commission for me and the trust with the client that I might send to more medical spa owners. And that's really what I really love and what I really enjoy. And the more I'm building my network, the more nodes of connections I have where I'm like, okay, we can refer. And that's the type of work that I really am not growing tired of. I just love it. Yeah. That's kind of the update. Yeah.
Is it easy? Okay, for all the people who are like, you know, because we when we started doing business, we thought it was easy. Because like we looked on, you know, you see people like, oh, you just got to do this, this, and this, and then all of a sudden you start a YouTube channel. It's just going to grow. It's just going to put a couple interesting videos, and all of a sudden, boom. Has this been easy, or has this just been a lot of trial and error in refining until you're now clear? Like, just doesn't mean that it was impossible. But like, what advice would you give somebody who's like just starting out and like who wants to live in another country but wants to support themselves financially and like, you know, wants to do it completely independent, you know, or like what do you what would you tell them?
Yeah, it really depends on where they're starting. Here's the thing with all of that, is like, you know, once you've competed in a sport, you know that you're fairly confident in competing again. Once you have been married once, then you lose the fear of doing that another time potentially. It's like, it's very easy once you know how to do business. That's why people who have crushed it in one business and then they go into like a different industry, they have all of the skills. That's really what it all comes down to. It's like, back then I thought I was working and I wasn't. But I thought I was like I didn't know what working meant, what like doing business, how money is being created. I didn't understand that. I was just getting up and sleeping in a bit and then hitting the gym and then eating right and then doing a little bit of something and then watching YouTube at night. And I really thought I was working because I was like doing things all day, but it's like I was not working. That's not work.
Right.
It's kind of work, but like if you want to be a bodybuilder, then you go to the gym twice a day.
Right.
But unless that, then I was spending my time in the wrong, and that's what I was doing back then. And I thought I was like working on myself and I'm progressing.
Right.
But like
Active
the actual works.
Active laziness.
Well,
right?
I mean,
like you're kind of like I understand because I can relate, but like you're doing all these things, but you're actually kind of lazy because you're like you feel like you're doing, but you know you're actually supposed to be doing something more, like sitting down and doing, because it's like you're kind of running away from. You're doing all this shit, but that feels good after. You know, you go to the gym, you feel good, like you know, right? You're kind of still chasing. You're still not sitting down and do, which we've learned how to do now, which is really sit down and freaking work, and it sucks. You know, until it works out.
Until it doesn't anymore.
Yeah,
until it really works.
Right.
And so, the lesson in that is really just like, depending where you start, when you have zero skills, you gotta look at like 5 years minimum, where like really build these skills until it like really works. It might be sooner, but like that's what we gotta see. It's like, that's how I also qualify my clients. Like, have they sold an automation before already? Because if not, there's so many skills that go into that. And if you don't have them, then it's gonna take the time. It really will take the time of like the repetition of doing that. And so, that's really what I've learned. And so it feels like it's getting easier now. And I will just keep doing the same thing of like making these introductions, but like getting there are like lots of skills that go into that. And the biggest skills that I really had to learn was like how to actually put myself into a place where I can actually work. It's like, I had the ingredients to all of it before. I was just so distracted by me isolating myself and then judging myself, so I'm not knowing how to solve the situation, so I wasn't actually working. I knew that I should have and could have, but I just didn't spend my time on the tasks that actually would have brought the outcomes, because I didn't know how to solve the other issues in my life. And since these felt, particularly like in relationships, I wasn't in a relationship, and I felt that was such a pressing issue in the beginning, that I just did not, like taking on work and making money felt like too overwhelming, because like all the other pieces in my life were not there. Right. And so part of that is, it's actually not that hard. It's just like having having like the long-term outlook of saying, it's like, okay, like how do you find a way to buy yourself 3 or 5 years full time? That's the thing. And if you like just working part-time, it's gonna take some hours, and we gotta make the calculations. It's like it will take time, right? And then at some point, when all of these skills come together, then it feels like it's getting easier and easier. Like in the same way as, you know, when some people already have built a brand, just like because they were intelligent and have just done that for like 5 or 8 years, then there's like, okay, well, monetizing that is not that hard now. Right. But like they've already been doing the right things for like a long time. So it's really like just long time and doing the right things every day. And that's really it. That's really it. Long time and like doing the right things every day for a long time. Yeah,
and finding a way to get interested in and obsessed with it, like the crypto. You know, like this January when I think you came over, and I was flirting with crypto in the years before, didn't really take it serious. And I didn't know how much actually went into it. I thought, but when you kind of reminded me of the crypto, and I appreciate that because it's been a blessing. And every day I'm on the charts, and now I know. And it was overwhelming at first. I'm like, how am I going to learn how to read these charts? How am I going to be able to? What the heck is a whole nother language? It's learning another language, you know. And but I got obsessed with it because I saw the potential, and I saw the long-term potential. There's two ways on that. It's like there's the short term, and then there's the long term. And it's like I was able to see the long term, like, oh, this is so interesting, and research projects and see, and also learn to not get, going back to the whole emotional thing, those crypto charts that you see with the green candles and the ups and downs, that's human emotion. It's a freaking chart of all the people who are investing. That is a chart of their human emotion. You know, some of it's, you know, billionaires and stuff making it drop and manipulating and stuff, but still, are they able to manipulate you emotionally? Are you gonna, when it drops, are you gonna, and you are down, or you just saw, you know, 50%, you were up whatever X amount of money, and then now you're down half of that, you know, in the multiple thousands, Are you gonna freak out and panic because the news just said, "Oh, we started war with Iran"? You know, like, so for me, for my personality, deep thinker and into news and all that, it's been such a perfect freaking synchronicity for me. And oh man, it's been great, and it's gonna link up with AI at some point too, because like that's what's exciting too. You know, you're working on AI, I'm working on the crypto and learning it, because some of these cryptos that I'm in is like Zbeck Network, which is getting more and more involved, with payment processing. Companies, you'll be able to get paid by the minute in crypto, but then it'll switch into dollars instantly. So you can get paid daily for your work instead of waiting every 2 weeks. I like waiting because it's better to save up, but everybody's different, And this is worldwide. Might be better in third world countries where they need money, that day. They don't want to, and transparency. This is the issue in Peru that I see, which frustrates me, is the pace. Like people, they're very like this on the page, very watery, right? Like, in Peru, for example, people might work all week. They don't even negotiate what they're really getting paid beforehand. They just it's too casual. But imagine a system in third world countries where I'm sure this is an issue, not just in Peru, getting paid accurately, getting paid for your hours. This can all be a system set up, and they get paid that day, right away. So this is what it's all gearing up towards. Whether it's going to take over the world, it's just inevitable. Just don't. I think there's some, it's good to always keep cash and gold and all that stuff, but just ride the wave, man. It's not our responsibility to look at all that. Like, are we, it's like, this is part of the system. It's part of human life. It's probably happened before in history. It's just, just ride with it, and just don't let it consume you and overtake you and take your soul, because I've had that in the last, working with the technology so much to where I lose my own personality. I lose my sense of humor, and I'm kind of dead on the inside. And I'm just like, that is where you then take a break and go outside and remember yourself and play music and take some days away from it. Don't let it own you, right? But I just think it's so interesting, man, all this stuff. Finding your passion in something. Find a way to love it. If you have an addictive personality, which probably everybody in the world does, unless they had like a perfect childhood, and they really don't. And there are people who really don't. But if you have kind of an addictive personality and you're prone towards that, find a way to replace that with something that's going to get you wealthy or stable. And if you don't have a family yet, or if you don't have a wife, become the person that would attract somebody who's good, who you can grow that with, because that's possible, even in the States and even in the world where there are people who are good. There's good people out there, but you got to be a good person first too. Not necessarily always, but like at least on your way, right? At least not doing the things that are really bad for you. Yeah. And you know what I mean? If you want to attract a good person and you're still watching dirty movies and obsessed, scrolling through 1 million people on dating apps, like that's probably not something vibrational wise you're going to attract like the best person on that level, probably not. But it's like maybe, I don't know. I'm not one to say. My aunt, got her husband on eHarmony, I think. Like what, that's like a long-term dating app. But like those quick fix ones, it's like YouTube Shorts. It's like that's probably creating pathways in your brain that's not, super good. But anyway, I don't know. We've talked a lot of stuff today, a lot of different things. But it's cool to be back. And I traveled, went back to the United States for like 6 days, and for work, laptop, and I just got married. A little over a month ago, and that went well. The ceremony went amazing. Pretty beautiful. Yeah, got the ring. Yeah. That was quite something. It was like an American Peruvian. A lot of the Peruvians were surprised because of how Andean it was. I wanted it to be like an indigenous Andean themed wedding, and I am kind of like an Indian in a way. I've been with the culture for years now. Even when I lived in the States, I was into all that stuff. And but a lot of people here were surprised because they think, oh, it's just going to be a really, what you see, American style, like super rigid and just kind of like super formal. And it was elegantly formal, but it was like we had Andean dancers from the jungle, themed from the jungle, and really went amazing. It was just like, and then it was raining all day, and I lit, and my father-in-law, he's kind of like a shaman sort of guy, but like, we prayed, and I had to, because it was raining. It was supposed to be outside, and everything worked out.
It did. Yeah.
It just all worked out the way, and it wasn't perfect, not everything, but that's life too. It's like, that's part of life. But man, for what it was definitely memorable, and it was there were things I could have done that were better. There were, but it was. But a lot of times you got to be easy on yourself too. It's like not everything can be freaking perfect. That's part of life. If it's so perfect and flawless and everything, let it go. Release control. That's the thing. Sometimes it's hard to do, is just release the control.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah, and it's like with that as well. It's like baby steps. You know what I mean? Let's do well, and then we do a 3-year anniversary, and then we do the wedding that you actually, and then you do all of the things that you wish you would have done.
Yeah,
and then you just do an anniversary party. And we do the whole thing again, and you recommit and like new rings. People do that all the time as well. It's like we can definitely fix that. No, one part of one piece that I really wanted to leave people with before we close here. I think we're at the hour. I mean, you can say a few other things if you want for closing, but it's like really community. Yeah. I know that you've been talking about getting these insider information on the crypto from a community. Mm-hmm. I know that we here are getting more and more established, building kind of our community, we between each other, and like also me in this online community. I'm like, I would not be able to make these introductions, which is like the very essence and the very meaning of like community and of connections. Yeah. It's like this person, as I just said, like that I talked to 2 weeks ago, how would you find such an opportunity? Yeah. I have so many roofing and landscaping businesses among my contacts now. After like a year of building that, I'm gonna just make him some introductions, because this is one of the strongest use cases that I've seen of like automating payroll and automating inventory routing. It's a beautiful use case, and people get it right away because people feel the pain right away. They're like, oh fuck, my manager is doing that too. It's like, I should talk to this guy. Mm-hmm. And so I get a cut from that. It's beautiful. But how would I have found this opportunity? You don't find it until you're like really, really looking for it and connecting yourself with these people. Right. And everything that I was said, like with the larger corporate context, it's like one of the ladies there in the community, she's British, she's in the UK, and she's been working as a chief financial officer for one firm for like a while, and she knows all of these people there. And it's just great. It's like the way that she carries herself, the way that she talks, like her whole demeanor, how she looks. It's like she's very relatable, but she looks like a corporate person in that way. And so corporate people will trust her like immediately, because it's like in German, there's this word called Stallgeruch. It's like you can sense, you can smell whether somebody has been there or has not. It's like you get the vibe. Right. You get a vibe whether you've been there or not. Yeah. And that's like I would not have been I would not be able to do what I do without these people, because part of really what I'm starting to do is I just get backed up by people who can actually deliver all of that. It's like they love building these systems, and they truly do, and I just love talking to people. So all I'm going to do is just make introductions and the coaching, of course. But that's what every conversation is anyway, part of that. When it oftentimes happens like that, where I'm in a conversation with somebody for this kind of networking, business development, and then they open up about something personal. It happens to me all the time. I seem to have like a very good feeling to make people comfortable, that they open up to me on the first call. They tell me about their things, and then this is where then the coaching conversation naturally happens. But the next layer on top, the next layer of value, in my opinion, is these introductions. That's honestly what I love. It's like, there's nothing better than like in between work sessions, go for like a walk or somewhere, and my mind is like connecting all these pieces and all these notes. This is what I thrive on. This is like this kind of creative problem solving. Okay, who do I know that I can match up with this? And the more the network grows, the more powerful all of this becomes. And that is also like a very future-proof skill, in the sense of like people, the trust that I build with people now will remain if I continue to invest in the information, in the relation. Even when AI becomes so advanced that we don't know whether, when we're on a Zoom call with somebody, whether it's actually the person or just the avatar. That might be like another 12 to 18 months away, maybe much sooner.
Or more.
No.
Really?
No, this is very close. Yeah.
That's crazy.
There is a case where this is only like 6 to 8 months away. But I'm thinking like 12 to 18. But for sure, this is going to happen very soon. And so, how do we do that? How do we then know that this is the real person?
Right.
because we knew that we've talked to the person before. Now maybe the technology integration, how it like links with Zoom itself, that might be different. But like to have these avatars indistinguishable, 18-month max.
There's gonna be things though that are put into place for because like remember because like everybody was worried about this a couple years ago, like the election cycle and stuff that. It's gonna be impossible to distinguish and all this. And it was like it wasn't as crazy as everybody thought it was, because it's like whenever there's new technology, there is gonna be ways. There's gonna be ways to verify that it's really you. You know what I mean? There's gonna be ways to do that, and you know what I mean. I just think we'll find ways to work around those things.
No, 100%, and but that will usually lag behind like 12 to 18 months, even though.
Yeah, the setup. Right? Yeah, that's true. There's gonna be.
So like I'm just saying, for people who are building the relationship for the first time,
right.
By the end of 26, latest end of 27, might be challenging, because a lot of people will have a lot less trust.
Yeah, and that's true. And they're not going to want to buy.
So, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like I'm building these relationships right now, and then they're like, well, I know this guy since 2024. It's fine. Right. And so, all I'm saying is like people. I would not, like the whole thing with $150,000 contracts, that lady just opened my mind to that. It was like, of course, larger corporations pay for that. I know that, like in the public speaking industry in Germany, where I was involved in like corporate events, they are this price point. People, like corporations, pay that amount of money for an annual event, and they also pay that for cybersecurity and for corporate training, and they pay this for, trips and bonuses and all kinds of things. And yes, they 100% pay that for corporate software. Salesforce is not cheap, and they pay these amounts for real proper system implementation. All we got to know is find a way to get these contracts. And if I happen to make such a contract happen and get like an 8% kickback of that, that wouldn't be bad. And so I'm just working that, and I think like over the next years I can definitely find a way. It's already happening. It's like just today I confirmed a call for the 22nd with the global head of AI at Logitech. Wild. Like he's one of our community members. We chatted before. I did good research in the way that I always do, and I realized that he had Machu Picchu as his Twitter background.
Oh, cool.
So I used that as the way to lead, and he was like, yep, sounds good, here's my calendar. And I'm like, all right, this is decent.
Oh, so he's going to go to the meeting? Or
the live meeting? No, not yet.
Okay.
But like, we're having a call, first of all.
Yeah, very cool.
And so for him, as a kind of executive at Logitech, especially in AI, it's a good contact to talk to.
Of course.
And so that's just currently what I do, connecting people. And so I'm sure that he has some insights on how we can get around larger corporations and interest them in these services, and how we can also team us up with the agencies so that everybody gets like, I don't know, a $10,000, $15,000 per month kind of share, which sounds like so much, but like for corporations, it's not that crazy. All you got to do is like have a decision maker that trusts you, and he's like, he just signs it right there. If the trust is there, if they know that you can deliver, if it's compliant, if it's like corporate compliant, all of these things. But like, if all of these pieces are in place, the money is there.
Right, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, man, amazing. A lot of stuff we're working on. A lot of things, and I'm on the physical. I'm just gonna stick kind of with my gut instinct on physical products, organic products, because that people got to eat. People more and more want. As the more we're going artificial, people are going to want the organic salt and cacao and just like these products, utilizing these systems. But I feel like more and more me practicing my emotional control, suit and tie, physical handshakes, talking with people in person is going to be actually even more of a need. As you're saying this, as the more things distrust get, that's going to be worth a lot in these next 20 years, being able to physically show up at a meeting. Hey, we're gonna have a physical meeting, before we do this deal, whatever, Whole Foods, whatever, right, or something like that. I guess that's Amazon, but even another chain, that's more accessible. Like, that's just gonna be worth real something. Hey, bringing people a tour down to Peru, having a physical event, bring it to the salt mine, bring it to the cacao fields or whatever, and just like. That's the direction I feel my gut is to, while utilizing artificial intelligence to help make that plan and to set up step by step and for to use as a lawyer, as a portable lawyer, when so you can have a step up with your real lawyer, it's like that's the way I'm going to utilize it. As far as creating art and all that stuff, I don't know if that's going to be super, I don't know if that's going to be forever, because I think people, I was listening to Simon something, what's his name, Simon, I can't remember, but he was like with the Diary of a CEO, Simon, I don't know, he's a guy with glasses, he's real, I think so, yeah, and he was saying, more and more, he's like, I read an article, if I think it's ChatGPT, I'm looking for the organic,
Exactly.
So more and more it's going to be, I think and I could see this happening, right? I think I said that like a year ago. I was like, that's not going to last forever, like the art, because people want human emotion. People want, that's the goal, that's the value. So using it doesn't mean never use the tech, but it's like, use it in a way that's helping, like you were saying at the beginning, benefit your vision, as a way to complement you as a vision instead of, I have an idea and it's just going to do everything for me. It's like, that's not even it. That's not even what it is. And I don't think it's ever going to be that. I don't think it's ever. Why would it be that easy? You wouldn't want it to be that easy.
Yep.
Wouldn't even make sense. So it's like, so anyway, we've talked about a lot today, and it's cool to be back. And man,
Good to have you back,
and yeah, man. So we'll probably meet next week and keep these pumping out, and just keep doing the messaging, and keep talking about these things. So all right, everybody, you'll have a good week. Have a fantastic week, and peace.
See ya.